functional medicine is basically a methodology. It's an operating system. It's a way of thinking differently about disease. And it's becoming a medical detective to connect the dots between all these disparate things. And so I basically look at a person's story and try to get a sense of how they got to where they are. So for your wife, I'd want to know, oh, was she born by C-section or vaginal birth? Was she—
Dude, you go all the way back to that.
Bottle fed or breastfed? Did she take early antibiotics? Did she have a gastroenteritis, or was she traveling to a foreign country, or did something happen where her gut didn't develop properly? And then I want to know what other exposures she's had and whether she's exposed to toxins, heavy metals. So I ask a lot of questions. I want to know everything she eats, exactly her lifestyle, what she does, how she sleeps, exercises. So I'm looking at whether the body's in balance in these systems. So functional medicine has a map. We call it the matrix.
Okay.
And essentially, as we look at your genetics and triggering factors, we look at your lifestyle.
Give me an example of triggering factors.
So were you exposed to a moldy house? Like I got really sick living in a moldy house. I lived in China, got exposed to mercury. That's a triggering factor, right? You could have got Lyme disease. You could have eaten bad sushi and got something, So all that is relevant as a triggering factor. But then there might be predisposing factors like she had a gut that wasn't so great in the first place. She might have had, again, born by C-section, not bottle fed, not taking antibiotics. And then we see where things are in or out of balance. When you have too much of the bad stuff and not enough of the good stuff that your body needs, sleep, exercise, nutrition, relationships, connection, love, meaning, all that stuff. When you have too much of the bad stuff, not enough of the good stuff, your body breaks down. So we look at these 7 systems and how they're in balance or out of balance. And that relates to all disease. So there's your gut, and they're all connected. They're not really separate. They're like a web, but we just break them out for the purposes of thinking about them.
Right.
So there's the gut and digestion, the microbiome. There's your immune system, we call it defense and repair. Your energy system, how you make energy from oxygen and food. Your detoxification system, how you process your metabolic toxins, environmental toxins. Your transport system, which is circulation, lymphatic circulation. Your communication system, which is hormones, neurotransmitters, messenger molecules that communicate. And then your structural system, which is everything from your biomechanical skeletal structure down to the structure of your cell membranes. And all those are influencing how you feel at any moment, influencing whether you're getting more disease or less disease. So when your gut breaks down, and the gut is really the central thing, because when your gut breaks down, everything breaks down. Because the microbiome is this extraordinary ecosystem of bugs within you that control a lot of what happens in your body. And when they're out of balance, you not only have digestive symptoms, but you can have everything from dementia to cancer to heart disease to diabetes to autoimmune diseases and lots more. The whole point of functional medicine is about creating health. Regular medicine is about diagnosing and treating disease. I don't really care what disease you have. I want to know, how do we create health? How do you get the best microbiome on the planet? How do you create a healthy inner garden? What do you have to do that? How do you diagnose what's out of balance there and get rid of the bad bugs and then put in the good bugs? But it's not just as simple as taking probiotics. I actually had
Do you think probiotics work?
They're like tourists. They come through the economy, they affect things a little bit, but they don't stick around that long. So you have to keep taking them, which is not bad necessarily. But what's really extraordinary is that I recently developed ulcerative colitis as a result of taking an antibiotic for a bad tooth I had, a tooth infection.
Whoa.
That led to C. diff, which is a deathly intestinal infection that then spiraled into colitis. And doing what I do, I was like, okay, well, this is kind of messed up. I got to rebuild my gut. And I, took all the things I knew and I put together this cocktail of stuff. And there was one particular bug called Akkermansia, which is really important in regulating immune function and cardiovascular health and lots of things. And it protects the biofilm, it stabilizes your gut. And this is all really relatively new research. If you have low levels of this, for example, if you get those new checkpoint inhibitors that are anti-cancer drugs that are immunotherapy, they don't work.
What's a checkpoint inhibitor?
It's an immunotherapy drug which activates your immune system to kill the cancer. And this is like 100%, like if it works, you're cured. You have melanoma like Jimmy Carter, it's stage 4 melanoma, you're gonna be dead in a few months. You take this drug, you're cured, and he's still building houses at 99 years old or something. So these are amazing drugs, but they don't work on everybody. And it turns out if you don't have a healthy microbiome, they don't work. So all this research was going on. I started looking at it and I realized, you know what? Taking prebiotics is good, which is fiber, feed the good bugs. Taking probiotics is good, but they also like polyphenols, which are these extraordinary compounds in colorful fruits and vegetables that the microbiome needs to grow. And so think about creating a healthy soil. You can put all kinds of chemicals on, right, fertilizers and this, and you have a damaged soil, it doesn't really grow good food. But if you have a healthy, rich soil, you can create health. And so we put in all these things like cranberry, pomegranate, green tea, and they are really great for akkermansia.
Okay.
And then I use prebiotics, a fiber like acacia fiber, to help feed the good bugs. And I also used a form of colostrum, which is immunoglobulin. So it's like passive immunity, helps regulate the immune system. And I use little collagen peptides. I took something called probutyrate, which is a product that helps with the fats in the gut. And it's just a general cocktail that I take. It's a shake, take it every morning, and within 3 weeks, my ulcer colitis was gone.
So first we had to kill the C. diff, then we have our magical cocktail. What if somebody has SIBO? Would you recommend doing a round of antibiotics to kill the SIBO first?
Yeah, SIBO, for everybody who's listening who doesn't know what that is, it's basically where the bugs migrate up into your small intestine and from your large intestine. So you normally should have a sterile upper gut, and your lower gut, your colon, is where your poop is and your bad bugs are, or good bugs. When they migrate up, that's when you get bloating, distension. I call it food baby. You feel, like every time you eat, you just feel bloated and full after. That's often a sign of bacterial overgrowth. It's really common. So you have to figure out why it's happening, because if you just treat it without knowing that, it can come back.
That's interesting. Why would it happen?
Well, it can happen because you have motility issues, you have low magnesium, you have a parasite, there may be some reasons why. You could have a BCA, which is a tick infection. So you have to figure all that out. But then you can take herbs, or you can take special antibiotics that are only in the gut. And I also use antifungals that clear out the bad bugs. I call it the weeding, seeding, and feeding program. You weed out the bad bugs, and you seed it with good bugs, and you feed it with all this good stuff.
What do you use to identify what the current state of your microbiome is? Is there a particular test that you recommend?
Yes, there's so many tests out there, but clinically, I think the most useful one, I've been doing this for 30 years, and it's called GIFX from a lab called Genova, and it looks at not just the microbiome from measuring the bacteria, because you can do that. You can measure with new DNA testing, which is really actually RNA testing for bugs. You can actually measure all the bugs in there, but then what does it mean? How clinically relevant is it? So I look at the function of the gut. Are there the products, for example, in there that are made by healthy bugs called short chain fats? If they're low, you know that there's no good fats, and that's the fuel for the colon. I want to look at you. Are your digestive enzymes working? Are you absorbing food properly? Is there inflammation in your gut? What's your immune system doing in your gut? What is growing in your gut? Do you have a parasite or bad bugs? So I look at all that, and then I can come up with a sense of what's going on. And often people have leaky gut and food sensitivities, and this vicious cycle of these bad bugs and food sensitivities, and it's what makes so many people sick.
How long would you expect, when done well, how long would you expect this repair protocol to take?
If you combine it with diet, because you also have to eliminate the things that are in your diet that are driving gut problems, right? Because think about it, you're eating pounds of food every day, and that is what's landing in your gut and feeding your bugs. And if you're eating processed food, sugar, starch, bad fats, it's going to be a problem. You're not going to get better. So you need a whole foods diet. I call it the Pegan diet, which is kind of a joke, but it's like, less extreme, more inclusive, but whole foods, focusing on quality, not so much worrying about quantity. And sometimes eliminating things like gluten and dairy and other things that can trigger food sensitivities. And combined with the diet and this protocol, within a few weeks, people start to feel significantly better. And then it takes about 3 months to really kind of reset the whole thing.
If you had to just put together an all-weather eating strategy, what would the ideal, in air quotes, diet
I wrote about it. I wrote a whole book about it. It's called Food, What the Heck Should I Eat? And it's about these principles, I call them the Pegan principles. And it's really focused on quality first, right? Nobody thinks we should be adding additives and hormones and antibiotics and pesticides and glyphosate to our food. Like, it's in it, but nobody's like, yeah.
How do we avoid it at the grocery store?
If you look at the label of something, if it has something you can't recognize, pronounce, then you shouldn't have it. Or if you don't have it in your cupboard at home, like butylated hydroxytoluene, which is in almost every processed food, is BHT, it's illegal in Europe. You wouldn't sprinkle that on your salad, would you? No. So that's a good rule. The second principle is, we should be eating a plant-rich diet, and across the spectrum, from fruits and vegetables, to.
Do you treat fruits and vegetables as sort of one and the same, or?
No, it should be vegetables and fruit, right? So it's like, you don't want to be consuming only fruit because that's full of sugar, and if you're diabetic or you're overweight or have issues, you might want to cut back on the sugary fruits or eat berries, which are less glycemic. Lots of nuts and seeds. Everybody agrees we should be eating lots of nuts and seeds. You want to soak them, reduce the lectins, that's fine. If you're going to eat beans and grains, pick low starch ones, right? And also
Give us a few examples.
So like black rice, which is like the blueberries of rice, quinoa.
What does that mean?
Well, the black rice is called the emperor's rice or forbidden rice, and it's full of these it's black. So anytime you see color in nature, there are polyphenols and phytochemicals in there. So it's got more antioxidants per serving than blueberries. And then you want to make sure if you're eating, grains, like gluten grains are interesting. So most of the gluten we eat is wheat. It's 133 pounds per person per year. That's a pharmacologic dose. It is worse for your blood sugar than table sugar.
Really?
Yes.
What?
Yes. When you look at the glycemic index, which is how much the fixed amount of the food will raise your blood sugar, table sugar is 80, bread is 100.
Whoa, I had no idea. Why?
Because it's so processed and so quickly absorbed. And if you want to eat, like, if you're not gluten sensitive, you want to have farro or einkorn wheat or, spelt, you might tolerate those because those aren't highly altered genetically. But the wheat we eat is super starchy, has a lot more gliadin proteins, create more gluten sensitivity, is sprayed with glyphosate at harvest to defoliate the plants, and it also has preservative called calcium propionate, which causes autism in animal models and is shown to cause behavioral problems in kids. So ADD, all that stuff could be all the flour. So I'm not a big flour person, plus it's just like sugar. So if you want to have other grains, if you're not gluten sensitive, like rye or barley, that's fine. And then beans, again, lima beans, kidney beans. Look, 75% of Americans are overweight. So most people should be eating a lot of starch. And that, you have to eat 3 cups of beans to get the equivalent of like 4-6 ounces of protein. So have this lentils and things like that, which are lower starch beans, the zucchini beans, other kinds of beans. I talk about them in my book. And then if you're eating animal products, you want to eat animal products that are not going to hurt the animals, not going to hurt you, and not going to hurt the environment, right? So for beef, it should be regeneratively raised, ideally, which is hard to find, but you can actually get more and more of that around, and there's ways to do it by looking online to get it. Thrive Market is a great resource for regeneratively raised beef. And again, chicken should be pasture raised, pork and all that should be raised in ways that are more organic or sustainable. Fish, you want to eat fish that's sustainably harvested or sustainably organically aquacultured, because we over harvest the fish, and then we don't eat big fish. It's like full of mercury and tuna and swordfish.
Just because they've lived longer?
Well, what happens is the coal and all the fossil fuels go in the ocean, go into the algae, get stored in the algae. The little fish eat the algae, then the bigger fish eat the little fish, and it goes on up the food chain. And when you got a swordfish or a tuna, these are monster fish, and they bioaccumulated all this. And so you want to eat the right animal products, you want to eat the right grains, the right beans, the right vegetables, get off all the sugar, get off all the processed food, eat whole foods, get rid of gluten and dairy, even get rid of grains and beans for a while and see how you feel. And if you don't feel good, try to add things back. If you feel amazing and your autoimmune disease goes away, your digestive problems clear up, your brain fog's clear, your migraines are gone, well, then that's probably a sign that your body likes that way of eating,